let me ask you a question. How many friends do you have on your social media? The average is around somewhere between 50 and 100. I was talking to someone the other day who has 500 friends, talking to another lady who has over 1,000 friends. Wow. I mean, we are the most connected generation in human history. Because I can see what a high school classmate had for breakfast in Tokyo. I can watch a live video from a friend hiking in the Andes. I can read a distant cousin's rant about their political frustrations and opinions. But let me ask you another question. It's 11 p.m. on a Friday night. Your car is broken down on the side of the road. Your phone is at 2% and you need a ride. How many people on that list of 1,000 friends could you actually call? For most of us, that list gets really small really fast. You see, we live in the great paradox of the 21st century. We're constantly connected, but we've never been more alone. Loneliness has been declared an epidemic by the Surgeon General. A crisis as damaging as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, though I would not recommend that. We have mastered the art of the perfect highlight reel, the witty online comment, but we've never felt more isolated and alone. And this ache for real connection isn't just a physiological or psychological need, it's a deeply spiritual one. Because the Bible makes a wild and audacious claim right here in the scripture that we're going to read today. The Apostle John, this wise old pastor who walked with Jesus, says, "No one has ever seen God." Let's just stop there. That's a bold start. He's basically saying you can't prove God with a selfie. No one has a picture of God on their phone. So how do we know God is real and present? Well, John continues. But if we love one another, God lives in us and his love is made complete in us. That's mind-blowing, friends. John says, you want to see the invisible God, you want proof that he's here in 2025, don't look up to the sky, look around the room, look at the person next to you. God makes himself visible, tangible, and real in the space between people who love each other. You see, a lot of people think of faith as a vertical relationship. It's about me and God, my prayers, my quiet time, my worship, and that's important. That's essential, but it's only half the equation. When a religious expert asked Jesus, what's the most important commandment? Jesus gave an answer that would reshape everything for us. He said, love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's the vertical part. Then he immediately adds, and the second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. He puts these two things together. They're not two separate ideas. They are two sides of the same divine coin. He says you cannot claim to love the God you haven't seen if you don't love the neighbor you have seen. This is the operating system of our Christian faith. Everything else, all the theology, all the worship songs, church programs, is an application that runs on this core system: love God, love people. That's it. We are called to love God and love people. A couple months ago, there was a gentleman found out I was a pastor, and he wanted to kind of, probe me a little bit about my theology, and he had gone to Bible college, so I think he wanted a little bit of an argument. And so he asked me, he goes, well, what's your theology? And I said, well, love God, love people. And he says, no. What's your denomination? And I said, love God, love people. He says, no, do you believe in dispensationalism or the covenant theory? And I said, love God, love people. And he says, no, do you believe in complementarianism or egalitarianism? And I said, love God, love people. Frustrated because he wanted an argument, he says, no, are you a Calvinist or an Arminianist? And I said, love God, love people. And our conversation ended right there. John says that when we make this right, when we do this right, love God, love people, that God's love is made complete. Let me just double down on this. Pollster George Gallup Jr., referring to American isolation, he writes, one survey revealed that 7 in 10 do not know their neighbors. That's why I love you Heritage people, and I love you Four Seasons people, because you lead the way in knowing your neighbors. He says as many as 1/3 of Americans admit to frequent periods of loneliness, which is a key factor in the high suicide rate among the elderly. There's a widow who comes to the food bank on our Fridays, and she says it almost every time she's there. I could come any day to get food, but I choose this Friday because there's always a lady who meets me out there while I'm waiting. It's either Deanne or Janet. And she says, they ask me how I'm doing, and they always ask if they can pray for me. In Robert Putnam's book, Bowling Alone, he shows that less than 10% of all men in America have a true best friend with another man. Just 10%. In Japan, I don't know if you've heard this recently, but there's an industry in Japan called Rent a Family. I kid you not. For a fee, clients can hire actors to assume roles as parents, spouse, children, or siblings. The service offers companionship to individuals experiencing loneliness or social isolation, and that business is booming. In the book, The Gift of Touch, Helen Colton says that the hemoglobin in the blood that carries vital supplies of oxygen to the heart and brain increase significantly when we are touched. She concludes that if we want to be healthy, we must touch one another in appropriate ways. Not inappropriate ways, in appropriate ways. Okay? Hart's Island in the Bronx in New York City. I don't know if you know this, it's an island and a cemetery, and it's only for unclaimed family members. There are over 1 million people buried there, the homeless, the forgotten, the discarded, and during COVID, there was a huge increase of burials. Imagine this in your own life. Imagine no one, not one person, claiming your body, saying, you belong to me. It's ironic that I'm sharing this today, and I'm not there physically. I mean, I'm not there because it's important I spend quality time with family and friends. And I know I'm not there physically. So I was thinking, I miss not being there. I miss the most just being able to shake hands and give hugs. Today, I can't shake Mike Stevens' hand and ask him why the Washington football team is not winning. I can't do that today. I can't give Sweet Sally a hug. I can't pat Irwin on the back and tell him how handsome he is before he tells me how handsome he is. I can't hang out with some of you who hang around after church in the lobby until the ushers tell you you have to go home and you know who you are. But the Bible says this, let's not forsake coming together. Because we can worship and read and study God alone, but there's something supernatural that happens when we come together in unity. There is hope, encouragement, strength, healing, and faith. As I was leaving church last week, a woman just said as she was leaving, I love this place because I need hope, and I always leave here with more hope. You see, God has created us for one another. There was an era when God was creating the heavens and the earth. God finished each creative challenge by observing what he had created by saying, it is good. The stars and the sun and the moon, it is good. The mountains and the oceans, the valleys and the trees, it is good. The lions and tigers and bears, and God said, oh my, it is good. Even the platypus, God had, you don't think God had a sense of humor. God had a silly day, and he created the platypus. I mean, it's a beaver with a duck bill and fins, and he even said, that's good and funny. But it didn't take God very long to notice the loneliness developing in the soul of the first man, Adam. So for the first time in eternal history, the Bible records that something in God's freshly created, spectacular universe was not good, and God doesn't deny it. He doesn't try to cover his tracks. He's fully aware. And for the sake of ending isolation, God fashioned a woman. And not only did God say it was good, but Adam said, it's really good. Good job, God. In fact, we have Adam's first recording of when he saw Eve.
Yeah, baby, yeah!
You see, God wants every individual to leave isolation that does not suit the soul of mankind and walk towards belonging. Some of the most radical words we just read. I'll read it again. No one has ever seen God. But if we love one another, and God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. But here's the key. Deep friendships are not automatic. They're built. They're intentional. They take time, effort, and energy. Just a raise of hands here, how many here would just admit relationships aren't always easy? They can be difficult, they can be confusing. I mean, sometimes you're just not sure what's going on, right? I mean, sometimes it's wild. When I was a kid, we'd go camping and my dad, we'd sit around the campfire and he'd play his ukulele or his banjo and he'd always sing this song about relationships and it was called I'm My Own Grandpa. Let me just read you some of the words. Now, many, many years ago when I was 23, I was married to a widow who was pretty as could be. This widow had a grown-up daughter who had hair of red. My father fell in love with her and soon the two were wed. This made my dad my son-in-law and changed my very life. My daughter was my mother because she was my father's wife. To complicate the matter, even though it brought me joy, I soon became the father of a bouncing baby boy. My little baby then became the brother-in-law to dad. And so became my uncle, though it made me very sad. For if he was my uncle, that also made him the brother of the widow's grown-up daughter, who of course was my stepmother. Let's all sing it. It'll be on the screen. I'm my own grandpa. Sing it. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. I'm my own grandpa. My father's wife then had a son that kept him on the run, and he became my grandchild, for he was my daughter's son. My wife is now my mother's mother, and it makes me blue because she is my wife. She's my grandmother too. Now, if my wife is my grandmother, then I am her grandchild. And every time I think of it, it drives me nearly wild. For now I have become the strangest case you ever saw. As husband of my grandmother, I am my own grandpa. Let's sing it, friends, on the screen. I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. I'm my own grandpa. Relationships aren't always easy. They can be complicated. They can be difficult. They can be confusing. As George Burns says, happiness is having a large, loving, caring, close-knit family in another city. So, if the problem is isolation, what's the solution? Just a caveat here before we get into that. Let me tell you what deep relationships are not. It's not about always agreeing with one another. If that was the case, deep relationships would be impossible. In the church, in a marriage, in a family, in a friendship, if it were always about agreeing, deep relationships wouldn't have a chance. How many here, you're sitting there, you're with your spouse or with a significant other, how many of you over the years have agreed on everything? You've never disagreed. You've never disagreed. If that's you, you're dismissed. You can just get up and leave right now. Because it goes way deeper than that. I just have two thoughts about moving from isolation into deep relationships. Just two. The first one is this: we're called to know and be known. We're called to know and be known. This is about authenticity and vulnerability. To know someone is to move past the superficial. To be known means taking off the mask. You see, most of our lives are lived on the shallow end of the pool. When someone asks you how are you, our automatic response is doing good, blessed, grateful, fine. Meanwhile, on the inside, a little bit of us is dying. Our teenager just told us they hate us. The car's making a funny noise. The doctor wants me to call immediately, and I'm pretty sure I left the coffee pot on this morning. Being known means finding a few safe people where you can stop pretending. It's the courage to say, actually, I'm struggling, or I'm scared, or I don't have it all together. I'm going to put this on the screen because this is really the takeaway. Vulnerability is the birthplace of connection. Vulnerability begins deep relationships. Now again, look around. Wherever you're sitting, just look around at the people that you're sitting next to. Just look around at them for a second. In 1966, there was an epic spaghetti Western film called The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, starring Clint Eastwood as the good, Lee Van Cleef as the bad, and Eli Wallach as the ugly. The expression, the good, bad, and the ugly, describes relationship reality. You see, I don't mind people finding the good about me, but I don't want people to know the bad or the ugly because they probably will reject me. But here's the reality. A real friendship, a real deep friendship has to include the good, the bad, and the ugly. As C.S. Lewis said, a real friendship begins with what? You too? I thought I was the only one. Now, I've been hearing this with the women's walking group on Thursday. I'm not allowed to go, but I've been hearing stories about just women walking alongside each other and sharing some struggles in their life. And there's a lot of that phrase from C.S. Lewis happening. What? You too? Oh, I thought I was the only one. If you and I really want to build meaningful, intimate relationships, we will have to be vulnerable. One of my favorite stories, and I've shared it before, was there's in a tavern in the Polish countryside, and two peasants, Peter and Ivan, sat at a table, both gloriously in their cups. Each was protesting how much he loved the other. Ivan, I love you. Peter, I love you more. No, Ivan, I love you more. And the debate continued until finally Ivan said to Peter, well then, Peter, tell me what hurts me. And bleary-eyed Peter looked at Ivan. How do I know what hurts you? And Ivan's face fell and his answer was swift. If you don't know what hurts me, how can you say you love me? If you don't know what hurts me, how can you say you love me? But we all work very hard in building an image, portraying strength, hiding weaknesses. There's a new phenomenon. They're not that new, but I haven't been single for a long time, but it's called dating apps. You know, dating apps, you go on and you write a little description of yourself. And I'd really like to meet some of these people and to see if what they're writing matches their real image. Let me just read a few of them, okay? Women first. Here's a woman. She writes, ex-New York model, very pretty, tall, shapely, clever, educated, divorced, white professional female, 38, seeks very successful, good-looking, tall, educated, romantic, single, white professional male. Wow. Now, she says she's an ex-New York model. She doesn't say a model of what? Maybe a tractor model? We don't know. I love this one. Neat, witty, grace-filled, blue-eyed female hourglass figure. Because nobody says they've got a watermelon figure. Looking for a tall, intelligent, healthy, handsome man. Now, let me pick on the guys. These are real. These are real. One guy says, I'm a stray cat seeking a kitten. Tall, nice looking, professional, 33, blonde and green. I'm assuming blonde hair, green eyes. Seeks attractive professional kitten to keep me out of the alley. Obsessed with kittens, apparently. Another guy says, handsome, caring, passionate, easygoing, emotionally secure, financial, stable, well-educated, fun, loving, sensuous. The guy sounds like Brad Pitt is a rocket scientist. So you go on the date and you end up meeting Danny DeVito and he works at Dairy Queen. It would be great if someone was honest on a dating app, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And they just said, you know, I fell out of the ugly tree and hit every branch. Okay, all right. The point is, we want people to have an image of us. But let me say it again, very seriously, even though we're having some fun today. Vulnerability is the birthplace of connection. Not with everyone. You don't share all of your hurts and your wounds and your struggles with anybody who just will listen. You just need one or two people in your life that you can be real with. Men need men, women need women. And let me just say this, Live58, the church should be the safest place in the world to know and be known. About 15 years ago, I was done preaching and a gentleman came up to me, tears in his eyes. And he says, Ken, I haven't been to church in 20 years and I've walked down some pretty destructive paths. He went on to tell me that 20 years ago, he went to his pastor and told him he was addicted to painkillers. And his pastor told him that if he had more faith, he probably wouldn't be addicted. The pastor said, well, we don't do addictions at this church. And this broken, addicted man, hearing those words, walked away from the church for 20 years when all he longed for was to be known. People are literally dying for this. You see, you get beat up enough times and you say, it's not worth it. I'm not going to raise my hand in class anymore. I'm not going to be vulnerable anymore. But that day, the man found a safe place to know and to be known. He joined a recovery group, came back to the church, and discovered a God and a community of people who were committed to knowing and being known. And this is a huge responsibility and calling of the church. Let me just paraphrase Paul in Romans. Accept one another, the good, bad, and the ugly, just as Christ accepted you in order to bring praise to God. All right? The second thing is this. We need to know and be known. That's about sharing our struggles. But we need to celebrate and be celebrated. I want to even do this more at this church. I want to celebrate and be celebrated. Being celebrated is about our unique being, our unique glory. God made every one of you on purpose, for a purpose. You are not a cosmic accident. You are a divine masterpiece. Now, if you haven't had a good blush recently, you need to read a short book in the Bible called the Song of Solomon. It's a bride and a groom. They're writing poetic, romantic notes to each other. They are freely celebrating every conceivable aspect of each other. They're celebrating body, soul, spirit. When you read this, you will hear this in the background. If you read the book, this is what you'll hear. I mean, if you want a real blush, it's wild. At one point, the groom says, and I can only refer to the tamer sections of the book, the groom says about his bride, "You have made my heart beat fast. With a single glance from your eyes, how beautiful is your love, my bride, how much better it is than your finest wines." I'm just saying, if you need a good blush, read it. Some of you right now are sitting saying, "I've never been more excited about reading the Bible." Some of you are Googling the Song of Solomon right now. Near the end of the book, they refer to the wealth and fortunes of a hugely successful man they know. And this is what they say to each other. "We wouldn't think of trading what we have for all the riches this man has. Because what they have, the riches of the world can't buy." The point is this. This couple enhanced their relationship by noticing each other. They highlighted what they found attractive and desirable and praiseworthy. And I want to tell you this. I want to tell you, whether it's in the context of marriage, parent-child relationship, friends, colleagues doing ministry together, you and I have the ability to delight each other's hearts and set each other's spirits soaring when we notice one another and then we say it. Paul says, so speak encouraging words to one another. Build each other up. No one left out. No one left behind. And then he says, I know you're already doing this. Just keep doing it. And Live58, I know you're good at doing this. Let's just do it even better. You see, to celebrate someone is to acknowledge the fingerprint of God on their life and to call it out. It's to say, Lori Baker, I see your amazing gift of administration, serving the church with integrity and passion. Bonnie, I see the way you bathe this church in prayer and blessings. Erwin, I picked on Erwin earlier, so I'll brag on him now. Erwin, I see how you write down everyone's name so you'll be able to honor them the next time you see them by knowing their name. Mike Wright, I love your sense of humor. It's about as warped could be, but it's a gift, and you bring joy to me. Ginger, I always love. You're always rooting for and speaking for the underdog. You see, we need to be specific with one another, intentional, celebrating each other's gifts and passions. And let me just say this, it's especially important to celebrate people that the world overlooks or are taken for granted. We need to celebrate the resilience of a single mom working 2 jobs. We need to celebrate the quiet dignity of an elderly man in a nursing home. We need to celebrate the courage of a person battling addiction one day at a time. For when we celebrate the least of these, we're throwing a party for Jesus and we're making God visible. Last week when we were serving at the food bank, a gentleman drove through and there was a little delay, so he was just sitting there and he and I got to talk a little bit. His name was John. He's about my age and he's an ex-rocker. And so we're talking, and he's just so grateful. He says, I thank God for you guys every day. I'm going through some tough times, but I'm just so thankful and gratitude. And I said, he just said, yeah, in the 80s, it was all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. He goes, I had big hair, and I was the leader of the band, and I was it, but I didn't realize I was killing myself. And he says, you know what changed? My bandmate's mother came to me and said, John, you're going to kill yourself if you keep living the life you're living. She says, but what you don't understand is you have a gift. You're a leader. And God's got a plan for your life. And so you need to clean up. And he says, I did. She spoke. She was the first person to speak into my life that God had made me unique to make a difference. And he says, I stopped using. I gave my life to God. And then he says, I've been able to help literally over the 35 years, I've been able to help literally thousands of men stay sober and introduce them to God. And he says, Ken, it's because of one woman, my friend's mom. She decided to see me not as I was, but as I could be with God's grace. And she celebrated my God-given gifts of leadership, a gift that was buried beneath my addictions. Friends, we need to know and be known, and we need to celebrate and be celebrated, because when somebody's celebrated, it may change the trajectory of their life. And let me tell you who our best friend is, the one who calls us friend, the ultimate friend, it's Jesus. Jesus said to his disciples, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from God I have made known to you. This is my command, love each other. I'll just say this today as clearly as I know how. Jesus fully knows you, the good, bad, and the ugly, and he calls you friend. And he fully celebrates you. As God spoke through the prophet Isaiah, never again will you be called left alone or forgotten. Your new name will be God's delight and the bride of God, for the Lord delights in you and will claim you as his bride. So, we started with a problem. No one has ever seen God. And the Apostle John gives us a beautiful, powerful solution when we choose to truly know and be known, sharing our real stories, our struggles, and our fears. God lives in us, his love is made complete, and the invisible God becomes visible. And when we choose to celebrate and be celebrated, celebrating the unique divine masterpiece in each other, God lives in us, his love is made complete, and the invisible God becomes visible. So my encouragement as we leave here today is this: just know and be known. Let's be a church where we know and we can be known. Let me ask this question. Just make it personal. Who's the person you can be real with? Do you have that person? The good, bad, and the ugly. They know everything. Who's the person on the margins you can get to know? Learn their name and their story. And then I would encourage you to celebrate and be celebrated. Who can you send an encouraging text or note to, celebrating a gift you see in them? Do that. Maybe you do it in the lobby. You do it on the way home, you text, whatever, but send an encouraging text or say it to their face, celebrating a gift you see in them. And who is the person that society overlooks, like my new friend John, that you can intentionally honor and celebrate? So this is what I want to do. I want to close here, but I want you to close your eyes. Just close your eyes. And before we go into this last song, closing your eyes is good because I just want you to imagine something. I want you to imagine a church known not for its perfect building or its slick programs or its elaborate light shows or fancy stage. But picture a church that's a place where nobody is invisible. Picture a place where you can show up messy and be met with grace. A place where everyone knows your name. A place where your uniqueness is celebrated. A place that loves and lifts up the poor and the marginalized. For this is a place where God lives. This is a community that makes the invisible God visible to a watching, waiting, and lonely world. For no one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. So let's go and make him seen.